following announcement has been paid for by the Celtic World Order.
Hello there. Good evening. Welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast, and more importantly, a happy new year to every single one of you out there. Thanks for coming back to join us on the channel. I know it wasn't the greatest start to 2025. We've been a wee bit waylaid in getting out there. The smoke is well and truly settled, or has it? I'm pretty sure there'll be still a lot of things swirling around in your head as we look towards the game at home against St.Mirren tomorrow. And I'm joined, as you can see, by Paul D, and we're going to have a wee reflective look back, I suppose, at that game against Rangers, our thoughts on it, what do we think we need, because bear in mind, the transfer window is now open, so improvements to that squad can definitely be needed, and let's be honest, I think we know we do need some reinforcements there, so we'll get all down to that, but before we do, just first and foremost, Paul, how are you, my man?
Aye, no bad, Steve-o, no bad. Happy New Year to yourself and everybody else that's tuning in from around the world. A bad day at the office, which we'll come on to discuss.
Yeah.
One that hasn't came at the worst time in terms of where we are in the season, and going forward, we've obviously got a good bit of points in the bank. So we'll move on, discuss this, and we'll go on to St.Mirren.
Absolutely. As it says there, it's a wee bit of a disaster derby debrief. We're going to pick over the bones off it, of course, and be a bit more positive at the end. As we say, we're in a right good spot. Yeah, it's not a complete disaster, but we want to look at these games against Rangers in isolation, because at the end of the day, yes, we'll go on and we'll lift the league trophy, possibly even a treble, but 2 games in, 1 apiece. The last 2 games, including that cup, haven't been fantastic, even though we've got the silverware to show for it. And in Scotland, in this derby, that's ultimately the one that the fans really want. That's what we crave. The trophies are the ultimate goal, but you also want, I know that they throw about the bragging rights. You like that. You like to go in, work it up your mates, work it up your colleagues, and have that you're the superior side. And I don't think we can say that after that. So we'll get into it. But before we do, as we say, wee bit of housekeeping. Thank you, every single one of you, for coming back. If you're a returning subscriber, then thank you very much. If you're new, get yourself involved. It costs you absolutely nothing. Hit that subscribe, hit the bell icon, you'll get notified. If you want to donate to the channel, you can, like the Bold 420 in the members section, donate to the channel. It's $1.99 a month. It just helps us put all this together. You can get us an X, you can get us a Blue Sky, you can get us on Spotify, you can get us on TikTok. Plenty of places to talk Celtic with ourselves. So, without further ado, I suppose, Paul, this is one that I didn't. This is the great thing about doing these things. They can't all be good. You can't always come on here and wax lyrical and have it all your own way. And by large, Celtic have had it our own way. And we as Celtic commentators, if you will, have had it our own way for long periods. Rather than picking through the bones of what was a terrible performance and the action of there was nothing from a Celtic standpoint, I want to be reflective, Paul. I want to talk about what we saw from individuals, from performances, from players on the pitch. And is it given us much questions for you, Paul, in terms of where we are? I know that sounds flippant. I know that sounds reactionary, but there's improvements to be made, isn't there?
There's improvements in any squad of any season. This season going forward so far, we've been absolutely magic. It was only a couple of weeks ago that we were talking about pinch yourself and how good it is to be a Celtic fan at the moment, and across all the platforms, everybody's been delighted with the season. You know, even in Brendan's pre-match press conference, he was having a wee bit of a kind of sly dig and a wee wink at the reporters about some of the previous criticisms and whatever else. But then we get to Ibrox and just lose our absolute cohesion that we've had all season. We lose any kind of bite that we've had in various areas of the park. And just desserts rather. We can't really dress it up any other way. We just need to take our medicine. I think we'll come on to discussing individual players, 2 of which have been under the spotlight recently. Mm-hmm. But overall, you know, it's one of those bad results that when you look back at the end of a season, people will talk about, you know, 1 or 2 results or whatever else and some of the performances along the way. But ultimately, as you say, if we get our hands on the trophy, that's all that matters. But yeah, a bad day at the office.
And that is the thing, as we say, is in this situation, you can be extremely reactionary. You can bend at the knee and you can go off your nut. We all seen it after it. People were disgusted, and rightfully so. And that sort of carried on, as we say, is we didn't get ourselves out there at the time. And I think in reflection, it's probably a wee bit better, because as much as we like that instant reaction and getting it all off your chest, I think when I sit back and take a wee bit of stock of where we are, it comes back to the cliche, you literally can't win them all. But I think the biggest trouble here, Paul, is less to do with not winning, but it's how you lose a game. And that, for me, is the thing that's completely gotten. And I'll go as far as to say, in terms of a performance, this isn't hyperbole, it was absolutely disgusting. It was not virgin, it was full-blown embarrassing from where I was. I don't think, for me, to the eye, there's any player in that Celtic side who can truly hold their head high, walk off that park and say that they gave it their all. If you pushed me and says, who did you think was the best of the Celtic players, I would probably say Carter Vickers, because he had a couple of tackles.
Yeah.
And that really reflects on where we were. I think when we look at the selection, we know there's got to be changes, but there's also a lot of questions. For me, there was more questions than answers off the back of that. You know, he's went with Scales. Scales is a guy who came in that cup final and really lifted us, stabilised us, made that difference. You know, we hooked Trusty at half-time in there. That first half, it was one of the worst that we've ever seen from Liam Scales, and possibly one of the worst first half individual performances from a Celtic player in this derby for a long, long time. Yet he survives. We also have Alex Baye on the bench over Taylor. Various discussions to be had around these guys. And I think that when we look towards the likes of moving forward, young boys round the corner next week, but more importantly, St Mirren tomorrow, will the manager be ringing the changes? I think, as you say, as we go into it, the manager was very confident. We'll do our own thing. We'll be, not bad for a team that doesn't attack, etc., etc. I don't want to say that is the case, but do you think that even amongst ourselves as fans, there was almost an air of, a veiled arrogance from our side of things across the manager? Maybe does that filter into the club? Because the manager says at the end, does he not, that perhaps our position played into how we turned out?
I think so. We've seen this before with us and with other teams at times. It reminds me back to the dark old days when guys like Jelavic were in the media saying, oh, we're whatever points ahead, we'll not be beaten, and we caught up with them and did beat them. I think there is a wee element of arrogance that maybe did creep in, and that'll be reflected on from within the club. We as supporters probably did. I was thinking 3-0 before the game and trying to hold back from saying, 5, 6, 7. But, it didn't turn out that way. Various players, as I said earlier, just didn't click. The main aspect of it for me was that we just didn't have an ounce of fight. And that took me back to the dark old days of the 90s when you were watching Celtic teams going there and showing no spirit, no desire. And as you say, there's a manner of how you can get beat as a Celtic player. That was a real big, glaring inefficiency of our team. It just looked as if players had just slumped their shoulders and thought, well, that's the first goal went in. Yeah. We don't really feel up to it today. I know there was a bit of a sickness within the camp, making no excuses, but, I just wonder, was there something lingering? I've never seen a team like under Brendan, certainly at all in both these spells, where a team with so much talent and desire and proven hunger and a winning mentality just all failed to play as a unit. It was shocking, and how the players, namely Scales and namely Hatate, came out for the second half, even with, Rodgers having faith in them, baffled me completely. Yeah.
And we'll get on to those players, but as you say, it was quite a surprising quick turn, of form in that game, because I know it's only, and we'll sound Rangerish here, the 4-minute cut, but the opening 4-5 minutes of the game, I thought Celtic zipped the ball about. They were trying to get foot forward, looked quite, zippy, energetic. I sat there and goes, this is good.
Yep.
This is a steady start. We're up for it. And then very, very quickly, I wouldn't say that when the goal goes in at 7 minutes, I wouldn't say that we crumbled and it took the wind out our sails and we fell apart. It was almost just as if, they've scored. And that's the only way I can put it. There was no sudden change the way things happened. It just went from trying to nothing.
Aye.
And it wasn't as if it was like you looked at the players, and I didn't see any of their faces when the ball hit the net that they were spooked, they were shocked, or anything like that. The faces were just disappointed. Balls in the net, right? Let's crack on. But then nothing happened. And what really frustrated me about watching the game was, I'm not going to sit here and discredit Rangers, right? Because that would be completely foolish. It'd be ignorant, right? Whether you like it or not, Rangers were faster, more purposeful, more aggressive, had more desire, had more fight. Any adjective you want that suggests trying, giving it your all, try to do the right things. Rangers ticked all those boxes and Celtic didn't. But the biggest frustration for me was the fact that even when we weren't under pressure, we were making mistakes. Now, at times, yes, Rangers were hurrying and getting up our faces and closing down and intercepting passes before they reached their man and all that kind of stuff. But the amount of times that you had a guy with the ball and he could have anywhere between 3 yards to 10 yards in front of him to pass the ball, and it was straight to a Rangers player, or it was straight out the pitch, or something like that. I came on at half time and I done the wee pop up, and I can honestly say I don't even have the words for what I was looking at, because I have never seen that amount of errors on Celtic's part consistently, and the same errors over and over and over, not being forced.
Aye. I mean, we've got that full team of players who are all adept to handling, that kind of cauldron. That's one word you could think of. We've got a full squad of players that could, for a variety of reasons, and have in the past handled that kind of partisan crowd breathing down their neck. We've seen them coming into that kind of place before and handling it. It just seemed as if the guys that were on the park, once there was a couple of mistakes made, they just chucked it. We've played football, we've been in teams where that's happened, and you've thought, right, get together. And I would have liked to have seen this during the game. We've seen it in a game recently where it was Schmeichel.
Yep, that's right.
Time out. That's what we needed in that game. Within the first, 15, 20 minutes after they scored, and you could see the wayward lack of cohesion and just the way we were playing, and just nothing was coming off. We should have, at one point, I saw a few of the players going over to the side of the park and taking a bit of a drink and chatting. And I thought, whatever's happening today is not working. And somebody, Rodgers, had to have at that point maybe thought, right, if we lose another goal, we're changing this completely. And we did, as we know, and it was allowed to play out, and the rest is history.
I think the hardest thing, as we say, is the nature of defeat. I know you'll hear that regular, unfortunately, when we go through talking this. To a man, nothing was happening. That spark that we saw in the opening 5 minutes was extinguished instantly. Now, as I say, what I will say is I'll give Rangers their credit where it is due. I've said previously before the cup final, where I say if Rangers want to try and beat Celtic, they're going to have to do something they've never done before. Rangers are going to have to try and play football. Now, I had a look at the stats, and yes, Rangers still had, in terms of forward balls, 72 long balls, right? Whatever. However, it didn't feel like 72 long balls.
No.
Rangers, every time they had the ball, they were zipping passes into their players, into their colleagues. Fast balls, purposeful, pass, move, looking for the run. Everything that we normally get out of Celtic, you got from Rangers. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, don't take this out of context. I am not saying Celtic are doomed, Rangers are back, and all that kind of stuff. Looking at this game just solely in isolation, you would have thought, if you knew nothing about Scottish football, and I says to you, one of these teams are 14 points ahead in this league.
Yep.
Bar one person or two persons, you would have said it was Rangers. Just fact. The way they were moving the ball about, they were zipping it around, all the stuff that we were doing, and they were just faster, fit. They looked fitter. That's something I've never said about a Rangers side against Celtic.
That's another thing.
And it was extremely, extremely frustrating. For me, I do believe that perhaps a wee bit of complacency does, and I hold my hands up and I say that. And hindsight is great. I often come on here and I'm always the sort of level-headed, a wee bit cautious, where I go, I don't really know. I think it'll be a tight game and all that. Even I bought into it. Hold my hands up. I bought into it. I was like, I think it'll be 3-0. I was speaking to my mates. I was speaking about it. I says, here's what I want. This is the order of merit. I want a goal inside the opening 15 minutes. I want a goal before half-time. Them booed off the pitch at half-time. A goal in the first 15 of the second half, and the Stains ending at 70 minutes. That in my head, that's
That
what
was the
was
same.
going to happen.
Yep.
That's that.
We
And
were all the same.
we sat there and we've bought into it. But as the comments are saying, it's probably a good point for us to happen, right?
Yes.
There's never the taste of getting beat off Rangers, not
Nice.
beat, scudded, because let's be honest, it could have been more. I feel 3-0 was a real let-off.
Yeah.
People don't like that, but that is absolute fact. For me, we got away out of there with just 3-0.
Mhm.
And that was lucky.
Aye.
But the facts are, looking at it, mate, the hardest thing is taking your medicine, but we needed that. We needed that. The good thing is, we know, we've been talking about it, we need a left back, we could do with another centre back, we could do with a winger, a striker, please. We've said it. But the difference between us and Rangers is we can fix these problems.
Yeah.
And
Quickly.
I would hope that we will right these wrongs. That we won't just do what we do and go, do you know what, bad day at the office, don't worry about it, they'll fall apart. And that's the worst part about it, because I genuinely believe that I would not be surprised if we went and drew with Hibs tomorrow. That's the way they are.
That's the way they've been playing up until that fixture. My postman came to the door today. He's a blue nose, and I was having a bit of banter with him. I didn't want to open the door at first, but I did. And he's one of these guys, one of these old school guys, maybe a bit of back and forth. He was very much of the opinion. See these guys celebrating as if the league's back on. They need to get a grip of themselves. You know, if we'd have done this and done that against other teams, then we would be in with a shout. You know, and that's football. You know, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's been criticisms on there. We're critical of our manager at times, but over the piece, this result has came at a good time with the points that we still have on the board. We do have to be a wee bit, you know, it's easy to lose the rag, and there's been a lot of reaction because we've not had this feeling. We've not had this feeling where we've been gubbed off them and we've had to just, you know, get on with it. But we will. Yep. We'll move on. It was a shocker of a performance from front to back. There's been criticisms of, as you say, just about every player apart from Carter Vickers.
And listen, we'll get into it because I want to do that. We'll jump behind, you know, back and forward, but I want to start getting get the opinions in. Let us know, what do we need? What went wrong?
Yeah.
Who was culpable? Take your pick. But I want to bring this one straight in for Mark Kearney. Mark Kearney, top guy. Check him out on the Bhoys bus. One of the most honest guys that you'll ever hear with regards to talking about Celtic. And he turned around and he identified someone that it's became unfashionable of mentioning Rio Hatate for some reason. We know on here, Paddy is his number one guy. Maybe that's going to change over time. I've always been quite honest. And he says Hatate's been churning out these performances for far too long. And it isn't just missing 45 yards passes now. He can make it in 5. It's time to make our mind up, and it's time to, you know, his time is up in his opinion. I want to get straight into Hatate here, right? Because I have flipped and flopped back and forward, you know, praise, criticism, caveat. There's a good player there. I believe what he's saying. I agree there wholeheartedly with what Mark's saying there. For me, when I look at certain players, we always say, keep the squad together. Let's build for this squad. Let's keep all these guys back together, right? That's what they say. I don't necessarily believe in that applies to everybody. I think there's certain players at Celtic who have a shelf life. There are certain players that have to be moved on as and when. And I genuinely believe, and I've been saying this for the start of the season and into last season, I know he had injury problems, that in my terms, I have now deduced, in my mind, that Rio Hatate has hit his maximum. This is as good as Rio Hatate is going to be. Now, if you sit there and you ask yourself and say, has Rio Hatate got any better since his first season? I genuinely don't think the growth from first season to where he is now is anywhere near what people thought it was going to be.
This hasn't just came off the back of Ibrox, let's get it right. This has came and has been bubbling away and has been discussed by ourselves and various other, pretty much all the support in the last month or so about his on and off inconsistencies. So it is a big question now that we have to face up to. If a bid did come in January, would the club, you know, accept it? He's been so on and off fleeting appearances where you see something from him and you think, right, we'll just persevere. He's going to start playing better. He had that chance in the game. Ironically, he had one of the only shots for us at goal, but his overall play,
I know.
so pedestrian. I talked in one of the videos before about him passing it to the referee. I can't remember what game it was where he stopped the ball. We were kind of on the attack. He stopped the ball, put his studs on top of it, looked round and played the ball to the ref. One of the away games. That game at Ibrox from him was the nail in the kind of coffin in terms of the people who have been critical of him. And I have to agree with what you're saying, that I think he has hit the kind of ceiling. Yeah. And if a bid was to come in and the club decided his time was up,
And
over.
the thing is, he's not the only one culpable. And I bring us in because you know what I'm like. I'll always respond to people. Is that there seems to be this fallacy, this notion that here we go. You're talking about Hatate again. Here you go. You're talking about Scales.
Why.
You go. I wonder why. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can use the term "have these players become whipping boys," but rightfully so. You know, I'll be honest. I don't mean this with I don't mean this an era being sort of cheeky or that. To anybody that's watching live or later on, strap yourself in, by the way, because there's going to be a lot of honest and frank conversations about some of your team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and this is, yes, is it partly reactionary? Of course it is. Mm-hmm. But if you ask yourself deep down, this is the question. Yes, there's a talent in there. We have seen the brilliance of him, but the reality is, I don't have it to hand. If you look at his stats, and I know stats don't tell the story, but if you look at the amount of actual assists and goals he scored this year, it's a shambles.
Yeah.
There's this idea of what Rio Hatate is, that he's this swashbuckling, untouchable powerhouse in midfield that can turn a game like that. Yes, he has moments of brilliance. Look at Aberdeen, bailed us out. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I think that he's becoming a moments player. And Frank says, yeah, Steve-O, that's the word team. Yes, it is. But a team is the result of it's the sum total of its parts. Yeah. And if parts in that team aren't performing to the best of their ability, you either replace, you either bench, or you play them, depending on how they're doing. And it is that thing. But there is a lot of key offenders that are doing it time and time again. And I'll throw another one out as well. I want to just continue a wee bit on the Hatate, though. But Cal McGregor is not excused. He's not exempt. And people, again, this is the problem. When we have a negative result, when we have a negative spin, it's easy for folk to say, jump all over folk, that's Rangers behaviour, get behind the team. Well, listen, we are fully behind the team. We are as passionate to that side and what committed to that side as any fan out there. But as we say, we come on here to discuss things. That's the purpose of what we're doing here on the show. And it would be folly if we just sat here and went, do you know what? The boys just didn't turn up. And because when we look at it over the course of this season, Hatate has been poor by the standards or the expected standards that he appears to have set.
If we still had 100% or even 80 to 100% effort from Hatate, but yet things weren't coming off, I would be in that camp completely, where it would be, do you know what? Give the guy a break. He's trying, and it's not coming off for him at the minute, and the manager's, persevering with him. But there was times in that game where he literally was almost not even a jog, and Rangers are coming past him in the park. Guys like Raskin, who obviously Rangers are singing his praises at the minute, but think back to the days when we had the likes of Scott Brown, he wouldn't have been near. The game, that's what we're lacking. Hatate versus Scott Brown. I know they're two different types of figures.
And see, just to whilst you're on the Hatate roll there, just to bring him at pork chop, saying about, he's the only team that can find a final Hollywood pass. Aye. Yeah, that's true. But again, is that a moments thing? I'll throw out to you, Hollywood pass, Bernardo for the cut-off goal.
Mm-hmm. Aye.
There is people that can do it, but I think for me, this is, and that, as I say, we sit here and we talk all the time, particularly Paddy, and we've sang Hatate's praises and we've spoken about the merit in his game. But again, how often is he doing these Hollywood passes this year?
I know.
This
There's
season.
Not a lot of it at all.
And as people are saying, people are saying, based on his form, 2 seasons ago, 1.5 seasons ago, people saying, go with the next 25 million player. I'll tell you right now, I genuinely think you'd be lucky if you get £8 million for Hatate. because I don't see who's coming in for him. We always talk about these supposed bids, the teams that are interested. Has there ever been a solid bid for Hatate? Good for us, because there is, if you get him on his day, he's a fantastic player. But I think we've got to maybe recalibrate just how good some of these players that we've got actually are. And he's been consistently average.
And consistently is the word. And it's not just been this game, and it's not just reactionary. It's been over the course of several games this season. And it's a vital area of the pitch where he has to be performing. And we've got this lead to Murnau by any means in some kind of crisis, but he hasn't been performing. I would love to say that, he's going to be back to the form that we know of last year and, his first season when he comes on and lashes a ball into the net at Tynecastle. When was the last time that he really took a game to the scuff of the neck? That's my concern. From where he's playing and his position in the pitch, he should really be getting tore in, and he's used to our game now. He knows the physicality. I just wonder if sometimes he just doesn't fancy it, and that's how Ibrox played out, sadly.
Frank's fully up the Hatate tree. He loves it. And listen, I like that. I like folk defending folk. Again, I don't know if you can't hear me. We're not blaming exclusively Hatate. We're talking about players whose performances have been subpar. He is one, and we'll be getting on to more. But yeah, I just think that for me, we definitely need a wee bit more in the midfield. And a guy that I always praise and I'll give him a hard time, Bernardo. One of the qualities I've always says about him was I genuinely believe that he is great at holding possession, that he could keep body possession in a phone box, is a phrase I always use. Another guy, simply not at the races. I would go as far to say, in terms of his performances, yep, that's got to be up there with absolutely one of the worst. Highlight, if you want to call it that, the ball through. The ball through for Kyogo. The one time we spotted a Kyogo run and he put it on a plate for him. But aside that, tragic. Yeah,
Bernardo's a player that, like Rio Hatate, I believe possesses great ability, great skill, and, as you say, control a ball in a phone box. Usually after just about every game that Bernardo plays on his social media, don't know who does it for him or whoever puts it together, but he's usually got like a wee reel of parts during the game where he's done, these fantastic Hollywood passes and set up stuff. But he wasn't at it as well, which was really, really surprising. I thought if one of the midfielders maybe dropped off, then at least you've got McGregor. If McGregor's dropping off it, then at least you've got Hatate. The sum of all parts and everything else that's been said, the whole midfield was non-existent.
Yeah.
It was really surprising.
And that is the thing. When we look at moving from game to game to game, we know, let's be honest, and I'm not excusing him whatsoever, because I thought that was, quite frankly, also one of the worst performances that we've ever seen from Callum McGregor. We look at these games historically, and the big gripe from Rangers fans is always Callum McGregor's allowed to maraud about, do what he wants, spray the ball about, control the game. None of that was clear. And it was actually quite embarrassing from our standpoint because, again, whether you like it or not, whether you think these guys are great or not, they had guys like Diamandi and Raskin doing Cruyff turns and pirouettes and spraying it about like they were prime Zidane. And this is the exact thing that Rangers fans normally get annoyed with us after these games. Like, how on earth did we allow that to happen? And it was happening right before our eyes. I wouldn't even really say that there was a battle in the midfield. No. It was less to do with tackling and more to do with intercepting.
One-way traffic, mate. We've covered, obviously, Hatate. We'll leave that where it is. We've covered Bernardo. McGregor, to go back to that aspect, Callum's been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And yes, everybody is entitled to a bad game. That was a very, very, very bad game from Callum. He will be the first person to acknowledge that. Over the piece, been absolutely fantastic as a Celtic captain. He will remain so. It's just one of those games where he was struggling to control the ball. The press that they were putting on, we couldn't react to. We didn't have an out ball because the rest of the midfield was running about, and trying to chase shadows. That's the bottom line. We were just overrun. We couldn't get any cohesive play together, and it's no one player's fault. We're going through it, and this is constructive. I don't think it's the end of the world, but we do have to acknowledge that they all had a very, very poor game. Yeah. But we go on.
And that's the thing, Paul says, when you look at, if you were to just parachute yourself in mid-conversation here, you would genuinely believe or think that, well, this is just setting this team on fire. And as we say, we're looking at this game in isolation, okay? Fully in isolation, just this one performance in this in isolation. Yes, we're saying such and such a player or whatever has been inconsistent or consistently average or whatever. Yes, that's part of the problem, but all over the board, looking at this game in its isolation, it was just a shambles from start to finish. And, you know, we've got to chew the fat over it, because these things can happen. They can happen. But I think there was, and a lot of the comments I'm seeing online and here and stuff, is there's this sense that sooner or later this was going to be coming. Our scudding was, of course, Dortmund, but that's different gravy. That's non-comparable. The two things are completely different. But I just felt that there was this undertone that somewhere in this league there was a defeat in the post. Similar to, remember when Hearts took away our invincible streak, where nobody saw that coming, and you get your ass handed to you. I just felt that there was this wee undercurrent that it was potentially going to be happening. Performances, we were winning. Yeah, we were, 4 goals before it and looking pretty good. But in terms of the start to finish, there was sliding doors moments in games where it didn't look like it was happening. We can maybe get the goal ahead and then it just snowballs because the nature of the opposition. So I think there was this idea, this feeling that this wasn't out the realms of possibility. It's unfortunate that it came with the way of Rangers. It's unfortunate it came 3-0, and it's unfortunate that we went down with a whimper, and that's the only way of putting it. But yeah, there's got to be lessons learned from it. And again, if we talk about the formation, we go with Taylor, still contract in the ether. Nobody knows if he's going to be staying about or not. There's a big debate over, should you continually play a guy if he's not going to be here? I kind of prescribe to that a wee bit, because I was calling for an all-attack sort of lineup. I was wanting Vaya and I was wanting Engels in for the start. That was the approach I was wanting to go with. And then, of course, there's Scales, who, again, Scales has been fantastic. We've sang his praises. But again, for every fantastic run of performances he has an absolute clanger like he did against Rangers. Again, possibly one of the worst performances that I've ever seen at Liam Scales there. It just makes you ask the question. See guys like Scales, guys like Taylor, people are saying, Hatate's getting a hard time, as we've seen with some of the comments I've brought up. He's a whipping boy, he's a scapegoat, whatever word you want to put on it. Do you think there's players in your team that are held to different standards? And is that right or wrong?
Potentially. Again, that's something that we're probably guilty of, because we have been successful for so long. We have been, if you like, spoiled. That certain players get a kind of free pass or whatever. Obviously, we had the cup final recently where Scales came in to tidy the game up, as Brendan put it, because of the kind of wee errors that were made by Trusty. I was on here recently as well, and I have been a big fan, and Scales is a good player for certain situations, but my God, Ibrox, like the Hatate performance, it was a bad performance. Everything that could be basically brought out in the one game that was totally disruptive and not constructive about how we wanted to play. I don't know what the tactics would have been, just the same old, kind of like get the ball under control. And I don't think the tactics would have been play it from left to right continuously.
Yeah, definitely.
That was bizarre. No forward momentum, no forward passing from him and Carter Vickers at times. I've been a big fan of Scales to date. I know he kind of splits opinion as well, but I think he's now shown that we need to get Trusty back in, and we need to get Trusty in against St.Mirren and going forward.
Does it surprise you? Because see, when we look at that game, right, I think that in general the squad's in a decent spot, right? Undoubtedly, there's additions that need to be made. There's folk that need to go. That's state the obvious, Steve-o. But factor is, we look at what we've got there. Is there any concern around you about when we look at the amount of money that we've spent? And I know that some of it's legacy, but we look at the fee for Lager Bielka out on loan, nowhere near it. 6 million on Trusty. As far as I can see, comes in, looks shaky, has his coming of age moment against Atalanta. Then you think, wow, this is the partnership. This is what we've got. he has a bit of a scare in the cup final, and then he's never to be seen again. Now, I'm not writing him off, of course I'm not, but I'm just talking from an observational standpoint that he's suddenly just been dropped like a stone, and we've not been told there's a health issue, there's a lingering injury, there's whatever. There's been no reasons given. He's just dropped out the squad. We've also got the mystery that is Malik Narodsky. 4.5 million. So we've got the bones of about 13-14 million pound, a centre halves that have been signed under Brendan that we're just no using. And we go to Scales, and I can understand he comes into the cup final, he stabilises it, and you think, right, fair play. But as people are saying, Scales survives the game. Now you could have the worst eyesight in the world, and you could see that he had to go.
His head was away.
If Trusty can get pulled out of a cup final where everything's on the line, why Scales exempt from the same treatment in a league game where there's significantly less at stake and there's still a great chance to turn it around? What the manager's got to explain that one, is he not?
I don't know whether Brendan maybe thought if he takes him off at half time, is it going to destroy his confidence or whatever else? But I mean, his first half score, it was absolutely way below the level that we would expect, or any team would expect from a centre half, especially faced with a barrage of players running at you. We needed to kind of show things up. The passing, the misguided passing, again, the lack of kind of energy where he looked just the slumped kind of body language. I know there's people are into the body language, but the body language for everywhere, all over the park, was really a team that were beaten. And I'm really surprised. I'm just really surprised at that. That's why I was making that comment about, was there something in the background to do with this sickness or illness? And this is something that's just my own personal thought. I just can't understand how so many players had such, and we're getting into that realm of we're spoiled. We haven't had a lot of time where this has happened. We've been very, very successful over such a long period of time. The law of averages dictates that you will at some point get a bloody nose. We got it. We got a sore face. But Scales didn't cover himself in glory at all. And if he makes a game tomorrow, I would be amazed.
So the other one as well, of course, was Taylor. Are you in the camp of, if he's no committing one way or another, you don't play him? Yes, Alex Vai is on loan, but he's on loan at the end of the season until we're told otherwise. Of course, there's a certain left back that a lot of folk think will be coming in. We'll talk a wee bit about that. Are you in that camp that Taylor, you've been cruising, you've had absolutely zero competition really for your position for as long as you've been here, you're now not wanting to commit, your performances are dropping, right, see you later, because we are 11 points ahead in the league. We're in a strong position. We've got this young guy here, and we're probably going to bring somebody in. Is that where you're at with that?
Potentially, I think Greg got the jersey against Rangers at Ibrox because he knows the fixture so well. I think when he's played against them, again, he's not been anonymous, and he still gets his criticism from time to time, like anybody else, not just Hatate. Whenever there's players that are making mistakes, we should discuss it. Vai's came in. There's been times where Vai has looked the part. He still is a wee bit ragged for me, and I think that's the only reason, despite the situation with Greg's contract, I think he's got the jersey ahead of him there because he knows the fixture well, and he's been a good servant to us, but we still need mega improvement in that position.
Yeah. So let's talk about that then, because obviously we'll revert back to the game, but the big story, of course, is that the prodigal son, Kieran Tierney, is going to be coming back. I've sat on here and I've pointed out that, and since he's been at Arsenal, he's missed about 500 odd days. That equates to about 112 games. Let's not kid ourselves on, right? We know his injury record. Is it something we can manage? Hopefully. But the reality is, he's a guy at 27, and on paper at least, he's got the prime years ahead of him. He's an Arsenal player. He's been in and around the squad. He's highly thought of at Arsenal amongst the fan base. He's always seen as being a model professional. They've liked what they saw when they've got him, but it's just not panned out for him. I think it's quite clearly the best opportunity for us to get him. There's talk that Celtic are looking at a pre-contract, potentially a loan, and then they'll sign him down the line. At the end of the day, they want him off the books. in terms of us getting him to come right now in January, that's ultimately going to down the wage weekly, because as much as he's a Celtic guy, of course he is, and he loves and he's through and through, you've got to look at it in the sense of, if he's got between now and May on his contract, that he's 100 grand that he's got, and Celtic are offering him maybe, I don't know, 35, 40 or whatever. No matter how much he loves Celtic, in the fullness of time, that's a lot of 100 grand between now and then. So I think there's got to be some sort of thing that be put in. But looking at it and coming back to trying to fix that performance against Rangers, the obvious one was, drop in Trusty, get him back in and stick with the four at the back. However, he seems to like Scales because he's this ball-carrying centre-half. We've spoke about whenever big CCV gets the ball and he kind of marauds into the midfield and he's not quite comfortable at doing it, and we've been caught out a couple of times. Bruges, for example, was the classic example where he just didn't look like he wanted the ball, and we're continuing going that well. Trusty's not that kind of guy. He's plays in front of me, defend hard and get rid of it. That's him. We were kind of had our arm tied behind our back and our options really had been up, because for me, and this is where I came full circle on the Kieran Tierney thing, having a Tierney on the bench gives you an option to completely flip the game on its head. It's not working. Let's go three at the back. You go you go Tierney, you go Carter Vickers, you go Johnson, you pack out that midfield, and hell, you can even go mental and put two up front with Kyogo and Ida. You can go legitimate 3-5-2 with a player like KT on the bench. We can't do that. So we don't have that ability to really properly shift around our backline and our formation. As far as I'm concerned, with the personnel that we have, just something like that alone, does that make you think that the manager will want to try and force that move through so that he does have those kind of options in his toolkit for the rest of the season, and particularly potentially European games?
Hope. Love Kieran Tierney. We all do. He was a great servant to us before he went away. I think the timing of when he went away and his injury record said a lot, because the nature of injuries it was getting, the region of the body where he was getting injured, meant that he probably had that kind of get that move, and he chose to go and go down there. He's obviously not featured all the time because of his injuries. I've read and saw articles where Arsenal fans absolutely love him. He's captained Arsenal in times, and they've really raved about
him. A future captain by them.
It's been unfortunate for him. Us getting him back would be great. I just hope that if he does come back, that he's not the only player that comes into that position. I would also like for us to have cover, because sadly, with Kieran comes that risk of further injury. The football up here being as physical as it is, he can cope with that. He's done it for years. He's a Celtic man through and through. They'll obviously sort out whatever they can. And getting back to the formation side of things, he does give you that bit more flexibility than what we've been getting and what we can deploy with the personnel that we've got. Greg Taylor can offer you so much, but Kieran, on his day, completely different proposition if he can stay fit. And I really hope that if he does come in, which looks pretty likely, that he stays, constant. We saw Brendan down in London. What was it? He was at a Celtic function, and obviously
and we saw the pictures and all that snowballed a wee bit. Aye.
And obviously that's another name that's in Brendan's phone book, as I've discussed before. That Schmeichel and now Tierney, and hopefully January. By the end of January, Brendan's went through that phone book, and if there is other players, and we add to these positions, and that's what we need to do. We need to bolster these positions. Kieran coming in would be great. He'll give you 110% every single day of the week.
We'll see in terms of that. It's definitely a position that we need. We've been crying out for it, and I think he adds that extra bit of quality that we need. And as I say, it also gives us that, in my opinion at least, that variation where you could legitimately change your formation and go to three at the back. Now, again, I mentioned this before. You think of the infamous season where Lennon flipped it up into the January onwards. It wasn't working. We were sticky. We were becoming predictable. A wee bit of some of the things that we're seeing in some of our performances recently for this. It was an evolution. It wasn't reinventing the wheel, but it was reshuffling the pack. 3-5-2, let's go, and we were just blowing folk away. I don't think the manager still fully trusts some of the personnel that he's got, and that really is the trouble that we've gotten. People, it's been saying here, all the centre halves we've got, Why is Scales the only one that's getting the nod? Scales he's a fascinating character for me, because there was periods where I was absolutely hating on him. Again, there was full circle moment, and I says, listen, why don't we just get to the stage where we can say William Scales is a good footballer? He is a good footballer, but he's an inconsistent footballer. And again, with every player on our side, whether I'm talking about Hatate, Bernardo, Maeda, whoever it is, see if they had that continuous level of consistency, quite frankly, they wouldn't be at Celtic. So you've always got to kind of accept that and have that wee sort of balancing act, find the middle ground, that they aren't going to be consistent all the time. But in terms of Scales, and I asked you earlier on, he gets a hard time sometimes, but do you also feel that he maybe gets away with it a wee bit more because the bar for him, the level of expectancy is that wee bit lower? Trusty's £6 million. That's that. I know I hate throwing out fees because they're neither here nor there. The player didn't ask for it, but people look and say, he cost us £6 million. He's played in the Premier League. He's played for his country, blah, 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 blah. His standard's there. He's been brought in at £6 million to sort out an issue. Scales is here. He's a guy that's came for Shamrock Rovers, or whatever it was. I think it was Shamrock, for next to nothing, went out on loan, done all right, came back and surprised everybody. So do you feel that he gets allowances, and maybe wrongly so, not just from fans, but in that case, the manager, because the expectations are lower on him?
Quite possibly. One thing you'll never doubt, again, as we've discussed, there's good and bad days, but you'll never ever doubt or be able to doubt the commitment that Liam Scales gives. He throws his head in, he does what he can, when he can, whenever he's playing. In relation to our starting 11, however, I just don't know whether he is going to, should be. You've got Trusty there. Do we know what Trusty's full capabilities are? Have we had a chance really to see a sustained time where we can really say Trusty's here, Scales is there? That's what I'm looking to see, and that's why I think Trusty should now get the nod and be back in. The manager has to get, and I think by the end of the transfer window in January, the manager will have a lot more of a settled idea on what 11 should be playing regularly. There's been a lot of chopping and changing this year, a lot of chopping and changing in the squad and the rotation that's been mentioned, but I don't think it's all the time helped. We are where we are. We've still got this really good points gap, but I think by the end of January, we should have a really settled attack on the second half of the season and have a consistent 11. That's what I really want to see.
And see, in terms of additions, it goes without saying, we're always looking for that extra winger, that extra striker in the left-back position, but a few folk are mentioned here, and again, it's an easy one to throw out, and folk kind of roll their eyes when you say it. Midfield, we've got a plethora of talents in there. We're always looking and saying, we need to replace, in the case of, we need to replace Matt Riley. If Hatate leaves, we need to replace Hatate. We need to, there's always somebody else, and I get it. Cal McGregor's the captain now. What I'm saying here is should we be looking to go out and buy a player that could replace McGregor? Forget those around him, but could legitimately dislodge McGregor? Is that the level of ambition that we should be getting at? Don't get me wrong, Cal McGregor, love him, model professional, absolute Mr. Consistency by large source, year upon year upon year. I'm not saying get him in the bin and chuck him out. I'm just saying, if we're talking about adding quality, if we're talking about building something special and having quality that's pushing each other, should we be thinking less about, right, Cal's always going to be there, so who can complement him, but thinking, let's get somebody in who could legitimately replace Cal McGregor? And folk are shouting out and they're saying stuff like, we need an enforcer. An enforcer, we well know, isn't somebody that's going to cut you in half and smash you, right? But if you look at over the years, let's just go back and say early, I know folk don't like Granty, but you'd Peter Grant's, right? And then you'd evolve in, and then you'd have like a Lambert, or you'd have a Lennon, and then we've always had players that can do a bit of both, that they can dig in, but they can get the ball and they can get their foot on the ball and they can make things happen. Brown was a great evolution. That obviously we had years upon years for him, and I don't truly feel that we've ever replaced him. Even guys like Wanyama, yes, he was maybe a destroyer in size and all that kind of stuff, but you get what I'm saying here. It doesn't need to be somebody that's going to cut you in half and that's all they can do. do we just need to be looking at somebody? Because as much as I like the midfield options we've got, we really don't have somebody that has that sort of qualities. When we were getting linked, apparently linked being nothing in it, but you looked at a Daniel Amarty and you thought, aye, something like that.
Players will come in for, different positions and different things. I think Callum will be back tomorrow. He will be the one that's hurting, obviously, a lot more than some others in that dressing room. We should be looking long term. We should be looking long term for a player, given Callum's experience and his age and everything else. But, things don't last forever. He came in after, it's big boots to fill with Scott Brown. Callum came in and I was surprised with how good he's been, and going forward, absolutely excellent captain. He's so professional. First in every training video you watch, he's leading the way. Very similar to what Scott Brown gave us. But we shouldn't be reliant on, we'll get another couple of seasons out of Callum. We really do have to start building for the future, and I think we will. He won't be alone in terms of criticism from the weekend, but I thoroughly expect him to be back in tomorrow and be all over it. It wasn't that long ago we saw Callum in games where he was chasing, Rangers players and calling them shite bags, and absolutely running the show in the midfield, as you touched on. A lot of the time they were just throwing their hands up at games and saying McGregor's turned up, so Celtic have turned up, and that'll happen again. We're only at the halfway point in the season, but I think to get back to the squad thing, we should, and I think we have to trust the coaching, the scouting network that we've had. There's been players in the past that have disappeared out this and for whatever reason have left Celtic. Jota left, we thought, how are we going to replace him?
Mm-hmm.
No, missed him. Tom Rogic, how are we going to replace him? Haven't missed him. Great players, so everybody has that kind of natural time where they will come and go, but we have to be alert and stay agile to be able to bring in somebody else that will be able to take that jersey going forward.
We'll see, looking at it again, just to finish touching up on the performances. So we've got a bit of chat to think about tomorrow, obviously. But looking back at Ibrox, look, repeating myself again, to a man, faults all over. Not one player in particular was culpable. Some were worse than others, and we've spoke about it. But I think it's pretty clear that, we need to shake the tree a wee bit. We need to be reminded. I think it was a stark reminder that nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is sacred. You can't have it your own way all the time. And hopefully we take that feeling, that gutting, that bit of pain that we've not had to endure, and they think, right, you know what? Not into that. That'll not be happening again. Mm-hmm. The one thing that concerned me was after the cup final, we says it'll not happen again. But it did. Mm-hmm. And that's the only thing that I think we really need to get out of our sort of our mindset as fans. We often say, don't worry, it'll not happen again. And I had a look back and, yep, do you know what? See, when it's all said and done, we've got the titles, we've got the trophies, blah, 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 blah. But when you actually look back to from that 3 each game at Ibrox last season, Rangers have scored more goals against us over the piece. Now, all right, they haven't won anything for it. But as I says, when you look at the league, you always look and you come away from it, yeah, we'll be sitting there in May, we'll be celebrating. There's no doubt in my mind that it's almost a foregone conclusion. And, snap me up for this if it unlikely happens that it goes the other way. But the fact is, if I turn around and says to you, Paul, here's the deal, mate. You're going to win the league, right? You're going to win the league by 8 points or whatever it is. You're going to win the league. However, Rangers are going to beat you twice. You're going to beat them once. You're going to draw with them. You taking it? Now, of course you want the league and you'll say, yep, I want the league. But you get what I'm saying? It's that rock in a hard place.
Yeah.
Yes, the trophies are the be-all, end-all. That is the end game. However, your season as fans, it's those 4 games. Not only do you want to walk away and have the trophies and the bragging rights there, you want to be able to say, and you could do nothing about it. Because it always gives those excuses. Well, if we hadn't dropped points in that game or that game, look at the Tommy Burns season, mate. Look at the Tommy case in point.
I was there, yeah.
Well against Rangers, crap everywhere else.
Yeah.
That's my point. These games, whether we like it or not, they're the ones you want to win. They're the ones you want. Equally, you wouldn't want to scud them 4 times and lose the league. But at least you'd have something to grab on it, you maybe.
I know. I think that's fair enough. Fans, different fans, people have got their own, at the start of the season, you've got your own objectives as to what you want to get out the season. And sometimes that plays out, sometimes it doesn't. This is by no means, a kind of a worry or something that we're going to worry about going forward. We are where we are. We're 11 points clear. I think the transfer window will give us more options. There'll be more people brought in to key positions. And getting into this second part of the season, I'm absolutely buzzing for it. A lot of money been spent, as guys are saying, 26 million in the bench. That's what a lot of people are, looking at. So I think he'll got the memo, in terms of how he's shaped the team up.
Yep.
In particular, he could have played other players against Rangers, and it could have blown up in our face. It's just the way it happened. It really is. We could be arguing about it and discussing it for a long time.
The thing I said, Paul, is we're just talking about it in isolation. We're not, as I say, it's not doomsday. Nobody's hitting the big red button and thinking, listen, we are in a fantastic position. We are in an envious position. They would love to have the ability to just change it for us, because I know it's not all about money, but mate, there's going to be a lot more of it coming in. We've got more success coming, and we can add to it. And that is the thing. We know we need quality. We know we need options. We'll go out and get them. Mm-hmm. We can readily do it. And that's exactly what I want to see. I want that to see for the manager, and I want the board to show that commitment to continue to, push Rodgers. What have we done? Celtic have always reacted when Rangers have got close. When they won 55, went and we sorted things out. Yeah, maybe done it surprisingly. The way that we done it with Ange, it was surprising, but it worked. Or whenever they beat us in the cup, we went out and get Rodgers first time round. We always seem to react to when Rangers do something against us. So I make no exception of this one. I think this will be very much a case here. There was a wee bit there that was saying, I just want to finally touch on that, which is saying it's similar to McLeish. He started scoring goals and then he found a way to win it. One thing for me that I would take away for this is to say that, yep, and James says it, Hibs will probably beat them tomorrow or draw. Would not surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise any.
But at the end of the day, when all's said and done, I don't care about that. I want to know that we'll beat them and they play us. They can drop points everywhere. I just want to get the better of them in every single game. I'm sure everybody watching does. But for me, is there any lingering concerns for you just between the last two games? It's just a snapshot to say that maybe they're finding a way to play against us. Yep, they can't get their ass up for a game against St. Mirren or Dundee or whoever else it is. However, the past two games have certainly showed that they can get up for it against us. Now, we might cruise, and by the time they come and visit Parkhead, league's out of sight. I get that. But just because it happened once, don't think it can't happen again. And they'll be looking at that at least. Beating us this season is their season, mate, isn't it?
That's it. That's a be-all and end-all. We would be the same if it was us in that position. The results against us, looking at it in isolation, it is just one bad result. There will be other opportunities as the season goes on where we can stretch our legs, and they may well obviously still drop more points. I think that we will be the stronger because of our squad depth, because of the players that we've got, the money we've got, that I don't quite think that they have at their disposal. So we really should just get this squad kind of built up a bit more. In terms of the positions, another striker option I would like to see. That's another discussion.
That there, mate. 4 shots on goal, 1 on target. Surprise for needing that, yeah.
I know. I think just to go back to the positions that need covered, I think another striker option should be priority. I think another wing position, either left or right hand side. We were talking about this the other week about Maeda's, how often can we go to the well with the likes of Maeda? So we will look at, shipping out some of the deadwood that's in the squad and bringing in some other options to go forward.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. Just finally talking about the needs before we just predict how the morrow's going to pan out. Strikers, as we say, as it's come in. The changes came on, just to scan over it. Key footnote, Celtic, 60% possession, all for nothing. You see how much a different game it was with 545 passes in that game. That's about just under 300 less than what we'd normally do. Yep. Goalie had 6 saves to make. We had 4 shots and 1 on target. Absolutely ridiculous stuff from Celtic.
That's why we're criticising. That's why we're talking about it, because it was absolutely unlike us.
Kyogo gets 1 opportunity in the game. cracking goal.
Yeah.
Cuts off, doesn't count, but it's a cracking opportunity. Ida comes on, and a lot of folk were saying he looked, I'll say it bluntly, dog shit.
Mm-hmm.
Ida probably needs a full pre-season under Rodgers, I think. But I also think the manager needs formation options, because I genuinely think, as I say about this 3-5-2 thing, it can work if you get the personnel to shift it about, but you're simply not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, Ida will continue to look average to dog shit if he just keeps on getting given 15 and 20 minutes.
He needs a sustained run. The big guy showed towards the end of last season. What he can do is scored a couple of goals this season, but he needs to get that consistent run. And I don't think it's fair on him that we're, criticising him. He's got that chance where he comes in and he really needs a wee run where he can really kind of try and make his mark in this Celtic team. But I think he will. I think he'll get that eventually.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. People are getting really upset, and rightfully so. This was an injury ravaged Rangers. Now, I says, when I was talking to some friends about it, despite the confidence that I showed when I was talking about it on the show with Josh, when I had that wee bit of reflection, I thought, I don't like it. I don't like when they've got all their players, or a lot of key players out. I don't know. It just always makes you feel uneasy.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly if they get a result, which they did, it's, you couldn't beat as well, all that kind of garbage, right? But the facts are, mate, they had a patchwork quilt at the back, and we did not test it, and our goalkeeper in particular did get tested nothing. I was shocked and surprised at how much we didn't. We were having the issues in the midfield. Yes, they were intercepting and bypassing and cutting us out, but why didn't we just bypass the midfield?
Yep.
They knew that they couldn't play over us or round us, so they played through us.
Mm-hmm.
And it was up to us to get round and down the flanks and in behind and move it on. We'd done that, nothing, never. And the amount of times that we kept going to Kuhn and we spoke about what was the positives, the overlaps and things, I think it must have been easily, I counted about 6 times where Kuhn had the ball and he was standing and he done now, he just does that wee poke to the side where he's expecting Johnson to run round and he goes straight out the pitch.
Aye.
It would be
uncharacteristic. Before the game, we were talking, and everybody was talking about how Rangers were so bad from long balls. The Motherwell and the St.Mirren games and various other games this season showed how, even when they had Suter playing, how badly they coped with teams just shelling it. Now, I know that's not our style, but we have to develop, maybe Rodgers knows himself, he's more experienced and he's done there, been there, seen it, done it. But I don't know, I mean, even towards the latter stages of the first half, we were still persisting with the left to right style football. We just didn't want to get involved. We just didn't want to get our sleeves up. I would have been just thinking, right, send some long balls up there. Sending long balls up to Kyogo. That's not his game. But they don't like defending that. And it would be all sorts of movement and break-offs from Kyogo that could have led to things. And it's all ifs and buts. But we should have the ability to mix it up, and that's Rodgers' game.
Exactly, and it's been said there. I spoke again about the 3-5-2. Wilson saying he done that at Leicester. Get him in the personnel to do that. We know that we need to move it around. I'm fully with you that we need another striker. Kyogo, fantastic finish for the one that's cut off. Aside for that, nothing happens. It was just a catalogue of errors, mate. Yeah. It was a collective pile of shit that was absolutely red hot and steaming on the pitch at Ibrox, and that was us. And I'm not going to sit here and make excuses. We've highlighted players, we've highlighted poor performers. Nobody has been safe today, and that's the way it should be. It's not because we think we're done, it's because that's what we want as fans. Comment what you see with your eye. You want the best for this team, and sometimes you've got to be cruel to be kind, or cruel to be positive or constructive, and that's pretty much it.
I genuinely think, Steve-O, as much as we don't like the result and we didn't enjoy it, and we're now just going to have to wear it and get on with it. It's came at a good time. The points that we have, we're getting into a transfer window. The manager and the club are now under no illusions as to players that we were maybe hoping that would have got us through, and we could have maybe have concentrated on other positions. We now know where we need to pinpoint. The timing of it's not the end of the world. But we're in a good position.
So brighter times ahead, mate.
Yep.
As I'm sure we've got big games ahead, of course. Young Boys of Bern, that is the absolute deal breaker.
Mm-hmm.
But let's firstly have a wee look at tomorrow, because, you know, St. Mirren come to town. Off the back of that, there's no doubt in my mind that the manager will be absolutely fuming.
So he should be.
Said before, I've never been as angry before in my life. I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a more angrier version of him after that. So based on the things that we've discussed, we brought on, subs. We brought on, of course, Engels. We brought on Vi. We brought on McCowan. Did I think any of them really changed anything in that game? No, I didn't. McCowan's culpable. He loses the ball. It's cheap. It leads to their goal. Engels, just again, he was fighting. He was joining a losing battle. You know, it wouldn't have mattered. You could have thrown Zidane onto that pitch there for Celtic, and it wouldn't have made an ounce of a difference. He's unfortunate to be on the end of some very unsavoury scenes that we don't want to see. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about that, but we need to change it up. I think there needs to be a message sent by the manager. St. Mirren, they're tough characters. We can't take them for granted. It's not going to be an easy game to get over a loss to Rangers in that sort of style. But we're at home. You're ringing the changes, mate. The stuff we're talking about. Is Trusty coming in? Is Vi coming in? Are we putting it up front? What are we doing tomorrow? How do we bounce back? What does it look like?
Now, St. Mirren will come and have a go. So I don't expect St. Mirren to come with their style of play. Their manager's very forward-thinking. I'd be very surprised, given the way they've played recently. They've got a very young, energetic, and very skillful team. A lot of their players are, that they don't shirk a tackle. They've got that. I don't know if he's fit for tomorrow. That big lump Gogic, as much as he's just an absolute hammer thrower, but he puts his cell about. They're a technically good team who will come and have a go. And I'm actually looking forward to it, because we need to get that game out of our system and get a nice fresh challenge. And it comes quite quickly on the heels of the game the other day. I fully expect Trusty to come in. I don't know what he'll do with the fullback with it. Taylor, I don't know if he'll keep Taylor in. It really depends. I don't know. That could be a toss of a coin. I'd like to see Vi getting more of a run, but I don't know. I've got a funny feeling he might just stick with Greg Taylor. And up front, Kyogo's got a couple of goals a week before. Has that goal obviously rolled off and didn't really hit the heights at Ibrox. So I don't know what he'll do there. I don't know. Playing against St. Mirren, will he want a bit more of a physical encounter in terms of playing off? He does strengths, I don't know. I think he might still persevere with Kyogo, but I definitely think Trusty will come in for scales. Yeah,
we do need to make some changes. There's undoubtedly, as we look towards it, as it says, there's 5 games before that crunch game against Young Boys of Bern, and some of them are not too bad. St. Mirren at home, Dundee United come visiting midweek again. We know we're going to get there. Goodwin's got them up to third. They're playing well. Ross County away, Dundee away, Kelly at home. On paper, they're good results. They're good games to have to be playing. Rangers have got some tough fixtures in there, as we say, and we know that they're yo-yo form. That it wouldn't put it by them to drop some points, but we need to do some changes. And I think as of tomorrow, that for me is definitely what we should be doing. Is Brown saying, surely he does got to get I don't see why not. Absolutely. I want to see
a coin, I don't know.
I want to see Trusty brought back into the squad. I want to see Alex Vi coming in. There's nothing that we can. There's no reason why not. I do agree with. I think that for me, and again, this isn't slaughtering Hatate. We've had our thoughts on it, but for me, Hatate, in my opinion, just can't start them. All right, he simply can't. You can't reward performances like that. And I know we've said on here, to a man, you could pick any of them, but in particularly Scales and Hatate, you cannot reward those performances with another roll at the dice tomorrow. You just can't do it.
Tomorrow for me is Bernardo, McGregor, and Engels.
And even Bernardo, as I say, was extremely poor, as was Kalmak. But off the 3, Hatate was the worst. You just can't. You can't reward that. You can't rip it up and get everybody out of the team. Because see if we had the squad to do it, and you want to send a message, there'd be none of them on the pitch based on that last result. It's as simple as that.
The week before, the week before, when you saw Hatate coming on to a game where the tempo had already been set, he looked brilliant. he was doing his wee drop of shoulder, letting the ball do the work and running through people. So it looks to me as if when you're at a game now and it's left to Hatate to set the tempo, we end up falling into that lethargy. I think he misses out tomorrow. Aye, bring him on as a sub, but I don't see Hatate starting that game tomorrow. Same as Skills.
I love it, Frank. Never change, mate. Defending at the hilt. You and Paddy should get together like that because you get on like a house on fire. Paddy will probably like, yes, he can't get enough.
I hope he does. I hope he does come back to his form.
And this is the thing. Yeah. See, with every player, mate, I am more than happy to sit and be proven. I want proven wrong. But as I say, I'm just sitting and I just feel that we've got to look at it and say, yeah, Hatate's the worst because he's Hatate. No, Hatate's the worst because, at least to my eye, he was the worst. I don't know what I can say about that.
If it was just a case of he was trying a few things and they weren't coming off, but the effort was there.
I think that we need to, and the thing is we're limited with the changes. We really are. That's the problem. We're limited. McCown comes on, has a Snyder. Bernardo has a rotten performance. Cal McGregor, stinking. Take your pick. It's all there, every single one of them. But we need to change things up. It's a good chance, a good opportunity to mix things up and do it. I want to see Trusty back in. That's the one for me. That's the guy that I want to see starting because we brought him in. We saw there's green shoots of progress and went, this is a good partnership that's here. Are Celtic going to have to maybe adjust the way that we want to play? We talk about this ball playing, and that's why he scales in. Is Trusty great with the ball at his feet when he receives it? Well, no, he isn't. He's not fantastic. It gives you that slight problem where he's not quite comfortable pinging the ball into midfield. Yes, the scales that made all those arses off it in the game against Rangers, he does that better than, Trusty and Carter Vickers. Fact. But it's not enough to keep him in the team.
Yeah. With the squad depth, and if he does drop out Scales, you're thinking, well, his mindset will then be, right, I've had a terrible game. If I'm back in, I really need to prove what I'm worth. Same on the flip side for Trusty. Trusty coming in, he's had that wee bit of a time out. He's probably pissed off and he's thinking, I'm going to show you when I come in against St.Mirren what I've got to offer. So it keeps the healthy competition.
And this is the thing. This is where the manager is going to get to earn his crust. Because we've been presented with a problem, we've been highlighted deficiencies of our game, and yes, we've been winning. And when we look at it, we were spoiled in 2025. We've got a home record fortress, Parkhead as it's becoming, to defend and kick on with that. So, positives there, of course. The whole season, listen, the whole up to where we are right now, that's the one fly in the ointment. It's just a big stinking massive fly, right? But it's been, we're sitting here and it's a hard one because you want to be constructive and you want to be reflective and you want to be honest, but at the same time, you've got to take that wee breath and step back and go, look at where we are.
Absolutely.
These things will happen. And that's the thing. It's going to be how we react to it.
There's a couple of things.
Kick off, mate.
There's a couple of moans. There's a couple of moans that we've got and that is shared across the fan base on the whole, season going forward. There's so much positivity, and as I said, it was only 2 weeks ago where people were flooding the social medias and podcasts such as this saying, "What a time to be a Celtic fan." There is only a minor blip there. I've got absolutely no hesitation in saying that the Celtic juggernaut just keeps going, and it better be back on.
It does, mate, and that's the thing. I sometimes laugh at myself, and I'll come on here and I'll be fuming, I'll rip strips off people, right? It's reactionary. That's that. As I say, and I actually quite like that we've taken that wee step back and came on tonight to talk about things because I can guarantee you, by God, man, I would have been a riot if I had come on after that game. You know what I mean? That's the thing. But no, look, tomorrow's another day. It's another game, and see if we ring the changes, we put in a solid performance. It is what it is. And that's the thing. A positive performance will make all the difference. We've got a good run of games. Yes, one or two are sticky bits of opposition, but what a chance to get a wee bit of run, a wee bit of momentum. Now, again, I will only look at our own house, of course we do, but we look at our rivals. And you've got some tough games there. And as we say, this is, we're back. That's what it is for them right now. But come 5 o'clock,
swings and roundabouts.
Tomorrow they could not be back, so I wouldn't put it past them. But get our house in order, get back to the performances, a couple of positive additions. How the additions are going to look, if any, in January is always typically very, very tough, as we know, and I hate that excuse. But even if we utilise the sort of loan and kicking it down the end, the end of the season situation, I'm happy with that. If I was a betting man, I would say that the situation with Tierney, that looks all but pretty much a certain. I am stunned to hear that we're going to make a profit on Burnaby. Wow. Well done, whoever managed to do that.
Cheers.
Well shout the picture.
Yeah.
Going on loan. I hear there's interest in Palmer from Genoa as well.
Yeah. How much money would be involved in that?
Exactly.
Is that a loan or is that a...
I think it's they're looking at potential loan, but they're wanting to try and loan with option to buy or just get him out the door. But the facts are is there's a lot of movement going on here, and I think that we should be looking to get a couple of bodies in. We definitely need it, if not for the domestic football, for the potential of the Champions League.
100%.
But we've got to cross that. We've got to go over that hurdle first. We've got Young Boys of Bern, and then of course we'll have. At the end of the month, we'll have Aston Villa. How that one will pan out will remain to be seen. But it is
we need a regular starting 11. We need to almost reset our 11, and we need to get more game time for Arnie Engels.
And that's to finish off. Do you know what? I would not put that past Brendan Rodgers. That is the most Brendan Rodgers thing in the world, where he turn around and play the exact same 11. They'd go out, they'd smash them to bits, and they'd just go, bad day at the office. What do you want?
Celtic world order.
Exactly. That's exactly what would happen. He would just go out there and blatty the two dicks or on Celtic world order talk shite about my players.
Well,
Get up.
Kyogo listens. Kyogo watches the show, so.
Kyogo, we have 4 goals, diving headers, overhead kicks, everything, mate.
Fingers crossed. It's just that wee part of the season. We've just that one game where we have had a wee bit of in and out form. That game we've discussed to death, and we move on. It's a fresh start and a wee bit of a change. Hopefully, the mindset of the players, that malaise has gone, and they go out there tomorrow and take their frustrations out in St.Mirren.
There you go, Hadai. Get it on it. Hadai has picked the absolute pinger. Marodin out in the midfield, just dispatching folk.
Yeah, waving at us.
And that's the thing. And defeats only really linger and matter if you don't react to them.
Aye.
And that's it. Tomorrow's a fresh day.
We've got no divine right, but
clean the slate and we go again.
Absolutely.
We go again, mate. Anyway, listen, thank you to every single one of you for taking the time to join us. And more importantly, thank you to you, Paul, for popping up and joining as well. I'm enjoying the new room here. I'm enjoying the backdrops, the bit of European Cup action there, a bit of Kyogo action. Love it.
Aye.
Is that Billy McNeil?
Billy McNeil,
yeah.
Wee Bertie. Funnily enough, wee story. So the missus was in hospital at the Jubilee and bumped into Bertie in the corridor. A lot of the boys in the group chats will know about this, but ended up meeting Bertie and had a few wee conversations with him in difficult circumstances. And we got round to the subject of Celtic, absolutely. And he managed to get a couple of things signed for me. So they're
love it.
Pride of place.
Bertie, one of the top characters in Celtic. Absolute legend. Absolutely. Anyway, listen, thank you for every single one of you taking the time out of your day to come and join us on a Saturday night. I know, a Saturday night. Brilliant. Of course, the game's up tomorrow. We'll be back. Hopefully, it's going to be a wee... do you know what? I don't care. Just go and win the game, Celtic. But, of course, a performance to go with it. Bouncing back. What Alan Partridge did. He bounced back. Then, that's what I want. I want a nice, tidy win. And then, do you know what? I know the league's pretty much done. I know... But it'd be funny, wouldn't it? It would just be funny if it did work out for them and all their good work was undone and all that. I'd love it.
We just concentrate on our own house, but there's a long way to go. A lot of football still to be played. But with that, we shot across our bows, and I fully expect the manager and the team to lick their wounds and move on.
Absolutely. Well, anyway, till the next time, take care of yourselves. Thanks for your continued support. And as always, hail, hail. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Cheers.